Wednesday afternoon, and my name is Rachna. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Graduate Student Program at the University of Melbourne. GSA is back again today to have a chat with you about another legal issue that has impacted a few of you or your family. And I am delighted we have Mark Tregonning from Victorian Legal Aid, who is the Community Legal Education Coordinator. But before I commence, I would like to acknowledge, on behalf of GSA, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet. I'm broadcasting from the virtual land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I would like to pay my respects to the past, present, and emerging leaders, and pay my respect to the Aboriginal people and the Torres Strait Islanders. So as many of you know, that GSA has found itself in an unusual position over the last 13 to 16 weeks. And over the last few days, the redevelopment of some of the issues that we have had with the pandemic, we may find ourselves in a similar situation for a few weeks. But I think these GradChat programs are really information dissemination programs that allow us to provide you information to access services. And I do feel quite privileged to continue remaining associated with the webinar, even in my role as a part of the GradChat programs that are organized by the student engagement team. So thank you so much to the student engagement team who keep inviting me to co-host this program. But I'm delighted to have Mark joining us today, who is from Victorian Legal Aid. And even from the time that I've known Mark, he's had extensive engagement with the legal sector, and he delivers legal education to young people in schools using flexible learning at flexible learning centers and TAFEs. And prior to his current position, he's worked as legal help lawyer at the Victorian Legal Helpline, and he'll tell you a little bit about the legal helpline, giving legal advice in criminal, family, and civil law programs. He holds a current Victorian legal practice certificate, and we are really fortunate that Legal Aid is partnering along with us at the university to engage in community legal education, because I think being proactive, providing you the information allows you to take informed decisions and your rights being protected. So welcome, Mark, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Rachna. It's good to be here. Hi, everyone. As Rachna said, my name's Mark Tregonning. I'm a Community Legal Education Coordinator with Victoria Legal Aid. I too would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, the traditional owners of the land I'm broadcasting from, pay my respects to their elders past and present, and say hello to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders that may be watching. Thank you for having me. Right, so I'm going to today give you a presentation we call Street Law. And for that, I'll just need to get that presentation going now. I'll move off there and won't. So there'll be little breaks sometimes when I'm need to change what I'm sharing. But now you should see our street law presentation there. And here's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about giving names and address, being found drunk in public, searches and public transport searches. That's the what we're going to try and get through. Sometimes we don't get through everything. We may have to leave off the last topic, but we'll get through it if we can. Rachna, if you can give me a bit of an idea when I've got 5 or 10 minutes to go.
And maybe, Mark, I think with the video, I think it's better to have the video shut down for you so that we can manage the bandwidth with the presentation. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay, I think. Okay.
Let's try that then.
Perfect.
All right, that should be shut down now. So here are our topics. So first of all, I'm not here to judge you or your interactions with police, tell you what to do, but I'm here to give you some legal information about your rights and responsibilities so you can make informed choices. Please do ask some questions through the chat. There are no stupid questions. We'd ask you not to share your own personal experiences. I doubt you will through the chat. We're going to let you know where to get help if you or someone you know needs it. You should have been sent a sheet where to get help that I made up and sent to the organisers. That should have been sent to you. I understand also there'll be details on the blog below this video that should show you where to get help as well. All right, assuming all is good, we can go on. So let's talk about where you can get help, because it's really important that you know that there's places you can get free legal help. Victoria Legal Aid, we have 14 offices across Victoria, including our city office on Burke Street, and we provide legal services at courts, tribunals, prisons and mental health facilities. We help those who least afford it to protect their legal rights and get a fair hearing. And we also give free legal advice and information to all Victorians with more intensive legal advice and assistance targeted to those who need it. We prioritise helping people who are particularly vulnerable, including children and young people. That's children there, meaning people below 18. You don't need a citizen. You don't need to be a citizen to get Victoria Legal Aid. That's really important. So if you're on a visa or something like that, just know that that's the case for all of the free services I'll be talking about today, that you don't have to be a citizen. So our legal helpline runs from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday. And we also have a great website where you can get your answers to a lot of legal questions. And on that legal helpline, we have bilingual workers who speak a lot of different languages. And we also use interpreters on our phones. So if you or someone you know doesn't speak great English, you can still get help through legal help. Some other places that you want to know that offer free confidential legal help are the Inner Melbourne Community Legal Centre. Office is currently closed, but you can get telephone legal help from them. Youth Law, which is for people under 25 in Victoria. And you can visit their website or give them a ring as well. There's also the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service if you're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. We also have some great publications on our website, such as Police Powers, Your Rights in Victoria, and the Street Law Wallet Card. That's a little wallet card with phone numbers and a summary of the topics I'm talking about today. Okay, so that's the sort of free legal help you can get. Just remember, you don't have to deal with this stuff alone, and you don't have to be a citizen to get it. Sometimes you won't get legal representation because that's quite intensive. That's quite resource intensive. So you won't necessarily get your own lawyer who helps you and writes you letters and comes to court with you. Sometimes you'll just get legal advice or legal information. But if we can't help you or someone else can't help you, they will often give you phone numbers of other places that can help. So the most important thing is to find somewhere and start calling, and don't try and deal with it all on your own. All right. So let's start with our first topic. Which is, so as I said, this is street law dealing with police and PSOs. So the most important thing is that the police, you don't have to tell the police everything. You don't have to give information to the police generally, even if they ask you to. The exception to that is that they can demand your name and address from you in certain situations. If they believe you broke the law or you're about to, if you're driving a vehicle, if you're on public transport, if you're in a hotel or licensed premises, or if they believe you can help them investigate a serious crime, and that's those things there. So if any of those apply, they have the right to demand your name and address from you, and you have to give it to them. If you don't give your name and address in these situations, then you're committing a crime, and they can issue you with a fine, or they can charge you and make you go to court. Now, you might not remember all these lists, so the safest thing we would say is that if the police ask you for your name and address, it's probably best to give it to them. Okay. It's also an offence to give a false name or address to the police, even if it's just a joke. If you say Mickey Mouse, or if you give your friend's name and address, that's an offence. They can fine you, they can bring you to court, and you might end up with a criminal record for that. Okay, however, that said, you also have rights. Those are the obligations you have when the police are asking your name and address, but you also have rights. And these are really important because you might want to use these if you come in contact with the police. You can ask police why they want your details. This question why is really important because they have to have a reason for asking for your name and address. You can also ask the police for their details in writing, their name, rank, and station, and they have to give it to you if you ask for it. They don't have to give it to you if you don't ask for it, but if you ask, they have to give it to you, and they can fine you if you don't. Other than giving your name and address, it's important that you don't have to tell the police anything. And most lawyers would say the safest thing to do is to remain. This is your right to remain silent. You've probably heard it on American TV shows. You have the right to remain silent. And it applies here as well. So this means you don't have to tell them a whole lot of things in an interview. You don't have to talk to them casually at all about other things. You can just say, I'd like to remain silent, please, or no comment to any other questions.
Mark, we have a question here.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
The question is, one of the attendees have asked, is the requisite belief that officers have to make you give up your name addressed related to a comfortably satisfied threshold or something else? What
let me just have a look. Sorry, it's gone. Is the requisite belief that I don't really understand the question, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would only repeat that in most situations, you have to give your name and address to the police. You should assume that, because if you make a mistake and you refuse to give your name and address, and they have the lawful right to ask for that, then it's a criminal offence.
Thank you.
Okay? So we would say that the normal thing to do is, rather than to worry about these thresholds and all that sort of thing, just give your name and address. If you think that they weren't entitled to ask for your name and address, then come to Victoria Legal Aid and we'll talk about making a complaint about the police asking you. It's risky to refuse to give your name and address to police.
Thank you, Mark.
No problem. Okay, so right to remain silent, that's also really important. You don't have to go to the police to the station unless they place you under arrest. And you can always ask them, am I under arrest? And the other thing is that it's really important to talk to a lawyer if you're taken to a station and they want to interview you. You have the right to ring for 2 telephone calls, one to a friend and it's a really good idea to make a call to a lawyer. You can ask for a legal aid lawyer, or if it's outside business hours, you can ask for the name of another lawyer and try and talk to someone that way. If you're under 18, there's a service where you can always talk to a lawyer 24 hours a day. And I think, most of the time for adults, you will be able to get a lawyer somehow. That's really important to get legal advice before you talk to the police at the station. Okay, so now we have a short video just to demonstrate some of these points. So I'm going to Just need to get that up and swap over. Hang on.
It was a morning, so sunny.
Okay. Tell me, Rachna, if this is not working properly. We're just going to get it up now.
Sure.
How's it going?
Yeah, I think we can see.
Can you hear it?
It was a morning, so sunny that you needed to not wear a sweater.
Can you hear that?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good.
Jimmy and I were sitting there at the bus stop, eating our delicious chips. And I said to Jimmy, ooh, I could use some sensational salt to go on my chips. It just explodes when you have that sensational salt. So he's like, sure. And I'm like, do you see those cups over there? Because it's kind of a shady area, kind of not where two little school kids should be sitting alone without any supervision. Like, that's right, I see him too. Like, let's do it. We did this awesome handshake that was so unmoist that our hands didn't get sweaty for some reason. We passed the salt to my hand. These two officers get out of the car, Officer Spence and Cheryl. They're holding hands when they came up to us. They're just friends, nothing more than friends. He comes up and says, son, I'm gonna need your name and address. And I said, Dad? And he's like, son, I've got no time to play games. And I said, all right. So I gave him my address. And I said, oh, it's just salt, sensational salt. He's like, oh. Well, that's doing something very illegal. I feel a bit like an idiot. I'm like, don't worry, we all get like that. And then they walked off, holding hands like little friends with benefits.
Okay, so that was a short film made by Youth Law and young people under 18. That's why it's a bit kooky. I kind of like it. And can you see my presentation now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Good.
We just related to a slideshow, I think. Yeah, perfect.
Right. So if you let's talk about that film. Why did the police ask for his name and address? Well, they asked for his name and address because they probably thought he was doing something illegal, maybe smuggling drugs or passing drugs to his friend. Did they have the power in this case to ask for his name and address? Well, yes, they did, because they could say they reasonably believed that something illegal was going on. It doesn't have to actually have been something illegal going on. There just has to be the reasonable belief that something illegal was going on. So they would probably have that here. And what rights did the person on the bench have when he was asked about for his name and address? Well, he didn't use any of these rights, but he had the rights to ask himself for the policeman's name, rank, and station, and get that in writing. He also had the right to ask why. Why do you want my name and address? And the policeman might have answered something like, oh, because we suspect that you might be doing something illegal, i.e. selling drugs. What if he refused to give his name and address in the situation? Well, because the police probably had the power, if he refused, that's a criminal offence. He could have been cautioned, but he also could have been fined, or he could have been charged and taken to court. Where could he go to get help? Well, any of the services that I talked about before could give him free legal help. So Youth Law, Inner Melbourne Legal Service, Victorian Legal Aid through our legal helpline, or you could go to the University Legal Service as well. So lots of places he can get free assistance for there. All right, on to the next topic then. Any questions on that?
I think we're fine, Mark.
Are there any questions? Wait. All right, I'll go on to the next topic that we've got then. which is called drunk in public. Now, the Victorian government has promised to repeal this law, but it's currently in place, so you still need to know it. The law says that you can't be found drunk in public. Now, a lot of people think this is a silly law because there's bars all over the place that sell alcohol, and yet if you're found drunk outside one of those bars, you could be arrested. And you could be taken to a police station. They could keep you in that police station until you sober up. That could generally be about 4 hours. And you could be issued with a fine or charged with a criminal offence. You may have to go to court, and then you could get a criminal record. So it's important to know if you are drinking and you see the police around, that there is this offence called drunk in public. The police don't need to breathalyze you or anything like that. They'll just observe you. If they think that you're drunk and you're in a public place, they can do any of these actions like arrest you, charge you, or give you a fine. They are supposed to check that you're okay and get medical help if you need it.
Mark, I might just ask you, and on a couple of times you have used the word police record for some of our new international students or people who have quite new to this understanding. Would you be able to briefly explain what a police record is and what its impact is, please? Thank you.
Sure. So whenever a police record is basically a criminal record, is a record of findings of guilt at court. So if you ever go to court and you're found guilty or you plead guilty to an offence, you're going to have a criminal record. That can be important because the particular effects, particularly if you go get a job, a lot of employers will say, before we interview you, we want to see your criminal record. And then you would generally show them your criminal record, or they won't interview you. And if they do see your criminal record and they see being found guilty of, or you pled guilty to, they might not hire you for that job. It can also affect you in traveling, as some countries will ask you if you do have a criminal record or any convictions. And if you say, yes, I have a criminal record, depending on what's on that criminal record, that country might not let you into the country to visit them.
Thank you so much.
So that's what a criminal record is, and it's often the most serious consequence of being charged with a criminal offence is getting a criminal record. All right, so let's have a look at a short video about being found drunk in public.
Sorry, Mark, at the moment we can only hear the screen.
Yeah, I know, I haven't shared it yet. It's all good.
Cool. No worries.
So for people who are listening to this session, please feel free to and comfortable to ask any questions on chat. And as Mark said, there's no wrong question.
There's no wrong question, ahead. And I'm happy to answer. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Great.
Oh, a few weeks back I had a mess night with my mates. We went from pub to pub and we were just smashing those drinks. We had drink after drink after drink. We went to this karaoke bar. I was on a mad rage. I was singing, I was jamming. Oh yeah, I'm cruising. I was loving life. At the end of the night, I ended up alone and had to find my own way home. I fell asleep and I had this great dream. I felt someone tapping me on the shoulder. And I was like, Mum, can you make me some bacon and eggs? I'm so hungover. But it was a cop and it was asking me if I was alright. And I was like, yep. He said I was too drunk, so he took me back to the station. Mum had to pick me up. I was so shamed out.
Okay. So why was the girl in the video arrested and locked up? Because she was found drunk in public. That's why. Was that fair? Some people would say it wasn't fair, and there are a lot of people who think this law is an unfair law, which is why the government has promised to get rid of it. Some people would say the police should have dropped her home rather than locking her up. They can drop you home, but they have the power to lock you up as well. What might the consequences be in this case? Well, she's obviously, she might get in trouble with her parents, but also she could get a fine, and it can be quite high, over $800, and she could be charged with a criminal offence and end up in court and then end up with the criminal record I was talking about. Where can she get help? Any of those free services I talked about before. So Victorian Legal Aid, Youth Law, Inner Melbourne Legal Service, or your university legal service. All right, so if we don't have any questions about that topic, oh, I can see there's someone in the question. Okay, we've got a question which says, are there any specific rules around breathalyzers? Yes, there's lots of rules around breathalyzers, but as I said, they don't have to breathalyze you for the drunk in public law. They can simply observe you. They might observe the way you're walking or the way you're speaking, and then give evidence that they appear to be drunk, and that can be enough for a charge of drunk in a public place. They only use breathalyzers for driving offences. And yes, there are lots of rules around them. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, which is move on and stay away powers. So the police can give you an order to move on and stay away from a certain place. They don't need to give this in writing. They can just say it to you. I want you to leave here and not come back. They can do this under the law, but they need to have a certain reason to do it. So they can't just do it to anyone. You need to be either disrupting the peace or likely to disrupt the peace. Your behaviour needs to be a danger to public safety, or you need to be likely to cause injury or damage to property. So if they think one of these applies, they can order you to move on and stay away. If they do, you can ask them why. What is the reason you are giving me a move on order? And they should tell you one of these things. And if you don't agree with them, it would probably be safest to still move on and stay away. But you could then call us or another legal service and talk about making a complaint. If you don't move on and stay away, so if you don't move on, or if you come back to the place where you've been issued a move on order from, then you can be fined or charged with a criminal offence. I think it's also probably important to note that they can't give you a move on and stay away action if you are demonstrating about a political issue or taking part in an employment strike action. So those are protected activities that you can't be told to move on and stay away during those activities.
So Mark, there's a question that was posted to me earlier, which
Yeah.
was really to say that recently there was a threat made to the community about being issued fines when people participate in Black Lives Matters.
Yeah.
Is that legal?
Okay, so you need to know, the first thing I would say is if you've been issued with a fine for Black Lives Matters, that you should talk to a lawyer about it. And I would be calling the legal helpline, or going to visit one of the services that I've mentioned, and you can get free legal help. I can't tell you whether or not it's legal without without knowing more about exactly why they issued that fine, under what law, what the circumstances, all that sort of thing. Some people at Black Lives Matters were issued with fines under the new public health laws that have been put in place during COVID. So that may be one of the reasons they've been issued, and there could be that could be a legal fine. But really, all I can say, or they could have been issued with a move on and stay away order and come back. But certainly, if you've been fined at Black Lives Matter, you should get some legal help face to face.
Fantastic, thank you.
No problems. All right, so let's have a look at a short film about this one.
An optician. So I was trying out some tricks the other day on the street, and a police officer asked me to move on. Yeah, he said I was disturbing the peace. I guess I took it a bit personally. I have a bit of a reputation to uphold, so I had to get back to my stage, to my audience. So I threw a smoke bomb, and shazam, I was back there. So in the end, I got a fine, but it was a great show. You've been great.
Okay, so the magician. Why was the magician ordered to move on in this situation? Well, he was ordered to move on probably because the police thought that he was disturbing the peace or some danger to other people or their property. Why did he get a fine? Not because of anything he did in the beginning, but because he came back. He came back to the original place after he'd been ordered to move on, and so he got a fine. Was it fair in this case? Well, some people would say no, because they might not think that the conditions were there in the first place for the move on order to be given. You might not think that the magician was disturbing the peace or being a danger to other people. Still, it would have been safer for him not to come back after he was ordered to move on. Where could he get help? Well, if he disagreed with the fine or the order to move on, or both, he could get free legal help at one of the places we've talked about. So Victoria Legal Aid through the legal helpline, or Inner Melbourne Legal Service, the University Legal Service, or Youth Law.
Mark, we have a question from one of our students who experienced some inappropriate behavior from our community in a public place, and her friend recorded this, the interaction between the person who was assaulting the student that's there. The question is, was that okay? The question is from the person who recorded the incident. Is it illegal for me to record an assault like that on my phone?
Well, this is becoming more and more a common question about recording things in public. Generally speaking, it's not illegal, so it's legal to record something that's happening in a public place. There are laws about surveilling people in private places or in intimate situations, certainly, but generally speaking, it's going to be legal to record something in a public place. You have to be careful not to stalk someone, I guess. There are stalking laws that are criminal offences if you're following someone else and surveilling them and a whole lot of things like that. But generally speaking, it's going to be legal. And if you're videoing an assault to use as evidence, generally that's going to be a legal thing to do. So that's going to be okay. And of course, you might then want to give that to the police to use as evidence in a police complaint about the assault. Does that answer?
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think it helps I mean, of course, seeking legal help is good, but I think
that's it.
It's for people to be safe.
Yeah, it needs to be said that I can't give legal advice on individual issues. So what I'm giving at the moment is general legal information. If you're worried about it, it is a good idea to seek free, confidential help from any of the places I've talked about.
And a related question is, can police ever confiscate phones or cameras in public?
Yes, they can. They're allowed to confiscate items which could be evidence of a crime. So they are able to do that and sometimes confiscate phones or cameras for that reason, but they shouldn't generally just take people's phones or cameras. If this happens to you and someone confiscates your phone or camera, I would certainly be getting some legal advice and from one of our lines about how you can get it back, when you can expect to get it back, and all that sort of thing. So you should at least be told why they're taking your phone and camera, and if it's not a good reason, consider making a complaint to try and get it back. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, that definitely does. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, so let's have a look at the next topic, which is searches. You can't carry, possess, or use a weapon to hurt people or to defend yourself. And that's really important. A lot of people think it's okay to carry something if it's to defend yourself, but it's not. The law doesn't allow for that in Victoria. A weapon includes a knife, and that could be a kitchen knife, for example. If the police believe you have an illegal weapon, they can search you. They don't need a warrant for that. They just need a belief that you have a weapon and your car, and take any weapons you find. I should say you are allowed a weapon if you've got a lawful excuse. So some items can only be carried if you have a lawful excuse, like work, sport, or recreation. An example might be a chef going to work might need to carry knives, for example. But I would say if that was your situation, that they try and be really careful, keep it in a bag, don't show anyone that they've got a knife, keep it hidden. It might even be helpful to have a note from your employer saying that you need it for work, things like that. But the most important thing is that self-defense is not a lawful excuse to have a weapon. So even if you're feeling like you might be assaulted, if you're a young woman and you're feeling scared about going out or things like that, the law still says you're not allowed to have a weapon for your self-defense. That also includes, it's also illegal to carry an article with the intention of using it as a weapon. So that might be an axe, a cricket bat, or a hammer.
Sorry, Mark, we lost you there. Can you repeat that?
I was saying that it's illegal to carry an article with the intention of using it as a weapon. For example, an axe, a cricket bat, or a hammer. Now, you may have a lawful excuse to carry a cricket bat, but if you're carrying it with the intention of using it as a weapon, that's illegal and you could be charged for carrying it around. And that'll often depend on the context. You know, if you have a baseball bat with you at 1 a.m. in the morning near Flinders Street, it might be hard to convince anyone that you've got it there for any other reason than a weapon.
Sure, we have two questions here.
Yeah.
Can you see the question?
I can see them, and I'll look at them one by one.
Sure.
So Victoria, the first one is, so Victoria does not have the equivalent to Western Australia, capsicum spray, for example. I'm not aware of the law in Western Australia, but I can tell you that if you have capsicum spray on your person in public in Victoria, you could be charged for having that. It's not okay for you to carry around capsicum spray. That would be considered a weapon and you could be charged. The second question is there anything you can do if you believe that the police have misidentified something you are carrying as a weapon? Yes, there are things you can do. First of all, I guess to prevent it happening in the first place, don't show it off, hide it as much. Don't carry it around on public transport and have it obvious to everyone would be the first thing. The other thing is, again, having a note from someone, like if it's something you need for a club or an activity, something from that club to say that he or she needs to be carrying this thing. Other than that, the police may simply not believe you and they might charge you. And that's the point at which the best thing to do is to get legal help as soon as possible. You definitely want to get advice if the police charge you on a weapons charge. So I hope that that addresses that question as well.
Thank you. Mark, we have 15 minutes left, so just thought I'd be...
Oh, that's good. Thank you very much. All right, well, I'm glad we got into weapon searches. We'll have a look at a video relating to this, just to reinforce that. So I'll just get that going now. Oops.
I think the very underlining message that's coming from Mark, and I hope the listeners are listening to it, is that seek proper legal advice and be proactive in seeking legal advice.
Yeah, that's definitely
not depending on your friend or your family or your...
There's a lot of myths, a lot of amateur lawyers out there that might think that they know, but they don't. And it's free and confidential, so why not use it? Let me just make sure I'm sharing the right thing. Share. Can you see the video, Rachna?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Right.
People think I'm a pretty tough guy, and I am. But it's just that I really like baking. It's just something I really like doing, and I'm really good at it. I love to cook in my own style though, you know? So it was my girlfriend's birthday the other day, and I baked her this giant, amazing birthday cupcake. All pink with icing and everything. I told her to meet me at the park for a picnic. My plan was to bring a rug and some wine and make it all nice and surprise her with a cake. So I packed the cake and all the picnic stuff in the basket, and I was walking down the street. But then this cop stops me, giving me all this attitude. He said he wanted to search the basket, so I let him. And then he pulled out a cake knife and said it was a controlled weapon. I explained it was just to cut the cake, but he kind of laughed at me and didn't believe it. And he ended up giving me a fine. So I finally got to the park and found my girlfriend. I gave her the cake and she was stoked. But we had to cut it with a spoon.
Back we go. All right, some questions about our biker baker. Did the police need a reason to search the biker baker? The answer is yes. The police have to have a reason to carry out a weapons search. They can't just do it because they want to, but they don't need a warrant. They just need a reason. What might the police reasons have been in this case? Well, we don't know because the biker didn't ask them. Biker baker didn't ask the police. So you can always ask why. Why do you want to search me? In this case, the reasons might have been because he looked suspicious, because he looked like a biker. Was that fair? No, that's not fair if those were the reasons. And the police would probably, the biker baker would probably want to make a complaint about that. Another important unfair reason to search someone would be because of their race or their sexuality or something like that. So if you think that the only reason you were weapon searched or the only reason you were asked for your name and address was because you're black or you're Chinese or because you're gay, then we would encourage you to make a complaint and talk to a lawyer about it first. You could talk to Victorian Legal Aid or one of the other services and get some advice about that. Now, what if the biker baker resisted the search? Well, two things. If the police are entitled to do a weapon search on you, then it's a crime to resist that search. So if the biker baker tried to push the police off or didn't cooperate with them, he could get a fine or he could get charged and taken to court. Also, the police can use reasonable force to do their search, and so you might get hurt if you resist the police in that situation. Did the biker baker have a lawful excuse to carry the weapon, the knife, in the story? Well, yes, he probably did. He was carrying that knife specifically to cut the cake. And in the story, he told that to the police, but the police didn't believe them, and he got charged with an offence anyway. Where could he get help? Well, in this situation, he would definitely want to get help because a lawyer might be able to help him get the charge withdrawn or be found not guilty because he had a lawful excuse. So he could get help from a place like Victoria Legal Aid or one of the legal centres or the University Legal Service. Now, I've got a question here that I'm going to look at, which says, could a person request that a police officer of a particular gender search for weapons, i.e. like some checks at the airport where a woman may request that a female officer conduct the search? Yes, the search should normally be conducted by a person of the same gender as you, and you can certainly request that. It should happen anyway. That needs to be complied with if it's reasonable. So it may be in some situation that it's not possible for a woman to have a female officer conduct the search, for example, and a male might do it. But you can certainly ask for it, and if it's possible, it should happen. If you had any problems with that, again, you'd want to talk to one of the legal services I've mentioned. All right, let's move on to the final topic, which is public transport searches. So you might have seen particularly at train stations, these people called PSOs, that stands for Protective Services Officers. And the main thing you need to know about them is that they have almost all the powers of a police officer in a certain place. So if they're at a train station or within a certain distance of a train station, taxi rank, these designated places may even be extended in the future.
We may just request you to repeat that. Mark, I may just request you, we just lost you after railway station. So.
Sorry about that. I'm getting an improved internet connection at some point. So So PSOs have all the powers of police in designated places like railway stations, bus stops and taxi ranks. And in the future, the government's intending to extend that to shopping centres even, I believe. So in general, if you need to treat a PSO like as if they were a police officer. PSOs are different from authorised officers. Those people only have the power to deal with transport issues, like not having a ticket or having your feet on the seats or things like that. But PSOs have the right to do all sorts of things and deal with all sorts of issues. So they can do weapon searches, they can arrest you, they can charge you for being drunk in public, they can use reasonable force to detain you and all that sort of thing. You will have seen, you see them, they've got guns, they've got pepper spray, and they look pretty much like police, and you've got to treat them like police. Just like police, however, you've got rights with them. You have the right to ask that PSO for their details, name, rank and station, contact the legal service, and possibly make a complaint if you're unhappy with the way the PSO has dealt with you. How long have we got now, Rachna?
We've got about 7 minutes.
Okay. Do we have any? We do have one last video, but it's often, but I'm happy to go into a discussion for the last few minutes instead.
Yeah, I may just ask the participants if they had any questions to ask, because I think we can take some questions. Otherwise, we can get on to the video.
That's fine. Yeah. Let's see if there are any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about any of the topics we've talked about.
I think one of the questions that has come through to GSA in particular is where people have felt that unreasonable questioning of police has happened, where people have been interrogated for a while and kept in the public. Is that something of concern, or usually what is the best way to approach that situation?
Look, some police will rely on the fact that most people don't know their rights.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just important, and I'm happy, and I'll repeat some of those basic rights that you can enforce in that situation. So the first thing is that other than name and address, you have the right to remain silent. So you don't have to tell them anything. Now, the police can ask you a question, just like I can go up to any of the viewers and ask them a question. Do you know the way to such and such? I could even ask them, what are you doing at the moment? Where have you come from? Most people wouldn't answer me, but if I'm in a uniform, they might think they have to, but you don't have to. You have the right to remain silent, which means you don't have to tell the police where you've been. You don't have to tell them where you're going. And you basically, the thing to remember is that in most cases, you will have to give them your name and address and nothing else. The other point I would make is that you don't have to stay with the police unless you're under arrest. So at any point, you can just say, I'm leaving now, and then walk away. You don't have to stay with them unless you're under arrest. If the police say, no, you have to stay, then you should ask, am I under arrest? And why am I under arrest? They might place you under arrest by doing something like placing their hand on your shoulder, putting cuffs on you, or telling you you're under arrest. But if you're not under arrest, you're free to go.
We have one more question, Mark. I'm sure you can read.
I can see it here. I'll just have a look at it. How hard is it generally to prove that a police officer has been unreasonable in their belief of something? I ask because I've seen some instances where it looks like someone was profiled on the basis of race instead of something else. Look, I'm not going to lie, it can be hard to prove racist actions because it's to do with motivations, and someone can claim that their motivation was different from what their actual motivation was. So look, it'll depend on the particular circumstance, but it can be difficult to prove racism, and it can be difficult to prove that the police was unreasonable in their belief of something. That said, what have you got to lose by talking to a lawyer about it, checking it out, discussing whether or not you want to make a complaint, discussing if you've been charged, whether you want to plead not guilty, all that sort of thing. The free legal services will talk through that in detail for you and help you to decide how far you want to go.
Thank you, Mark. I may just probably, just with the, just because one of the experiences for us is while we support graduates through their student life is the importance of seeking help. And yes. I think the over-reliance of technology, which is, and we currently finding ourselves in this situation, is that a lot of the, the lot of information is sought through Google, your internet, and your overconfident friends who may have had interaction. So maybe just clarifying the difference between an information and advice provided by legal aid.
Sure. Well, there's two things I would say. First of all, be really careful with Google. There's all sorts of mistakes you could make if you just Google a legal question. You could get the wrong jurisdiction, for example. Laws are different. You could get an out-of-date piece of information. You could get someone's opinion. You could get all sorts of things. So in terms of using technology, I would direct you to the sheet that you would have been provided for, or the information that's on the blog. Those are reliable internet sources, and you should use them instead of anything else. So that's the first thing. Only use reliable online locations, not just Google. The second thing is don't hesitate to get your own personalized legal advice. It is very different from just getting legal information. Legal information can't look at all the different situations that you might be in. You can get free legal advice on these topics from the services we've talked about. So I would encourage you, particularly if you've been charged or if you believe that the police have treated you unfairly, get one-on-one legal help, because it's there and available for you.
Fantastic. So Mark, as we're reaching the end of the program, I probably just want to encourage graduates who are listening to this webinar, or who have been with a part of the, and thank you for the wonderful questions, is that, we encourage you to ring legal aid. At this campus, we have AMSU Legal Service, and currently, yes, they are taking appointments through emails, and all the information is available on their website. But there are also community legal centers that are, which Mark has kindly put together for us, which we put up on the blog. But I think for me, the underlining message that I'm going from here with this session is the importance to be proactive, not to feel you're alone, not to feel ashamed if you have an interaction with the police, and to seek legal help as soon as possible, so that people who have the expertise and the knowledge can guide you through this process. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Mark, for providing us this comprehensive information. And I found really the presentation very interesting, and I think the blend of the little animated presentation and the content was extremely interesting.
Oh, good. Thanks very much, Rachna. Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening out there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
So once again, from everyone on who are listening to the GradChat program, and particularly to the participants today, that it's a very important topic. So if you either if you are studying law, or if you have friends who have had interaction with the police, please ensure that you are proactive and you kind of support them to seek the appropriate legal service, or refer them to AMSU, who's very kindly partnered with us on many of the legal information sessions that are there. And we'd really thank Legal Aid for participating with us in such a short notice. We are run short of time, but we have today joining us today is Matt Harper Gom, who is our GSA Activities Officer. His details are on the website. Please contact him too if you need to kind of be proactive and seek guidance or provide him advice on the kind of information that we can provide. But jump onto our website, Facebook, and we will be back again tomorrow, I understand, with some support on academic excellence. So I may just get Andrew just to tell us what's happening tomorrow.
Hi, Rachna. So yeah, tomorrow we have a convo club, a conversation club for the TV show Friends, and the academic excellence webinar that we have tomorrow at 3 p.m. is about exam anxiety. So Tavita will just be talking through just anxieties around exams and just effective strategies of coping and dealing with that. On Friday, there's a Feel Good Friday with the artist Ruby May, and there is a few grad chats for the next week. But yeah, looking forward to next Wednesday, where Victorian legal aid lawyer Jen Lynch will be talking about discrimination law.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Andrew and your team, for putting this together, and goodbye for now.